This week's show is supported by Granola, the AI note-taker made for professionals in back-to-back meetings, online or in person. As an advisor, consultant, or manager, Granola gives you complete flexibility in how you inform participants and handle consent. No bot joining the call, just quiet, unobtrusive capture running on your device. It works across everything: Zoom, Google Meet, Teams, and on your phone for in-person sessions too. The real superpower? Querying everything across every call you've ever recorded, or drilling down into a single project history in seconds. Set up your own custom reports, spot patterns, and connect to all your favorite tools: Notion, HubSpot, Zapier, and more. It's not just a note-taker, it's a second brain for your business or your practice. Thanks to the nice people at Granola. Use the link at go.granola.ai/Michelle and they'll extend your 1-week trial to a full month. The link's in the show notes, or visit go.granola.ai/Michelle.
Hi there, and welcome back to the Energy Sector Heroes podcast. My name is Michelle Fraser, and every week I will speak with incredible people who share their lessons, experiences, and stories from their time spent in the energy sector. Hi there, and welcome back again to this week's episode. If you're new to the show, then please take a second to subscribe. And even consider sharing the show with just one other person. This week, I am joined by Dr. Naveed Akhtar. Naveed has over 25 years global experience in hydrogen, energy, and industrial decarbonation. Naveed, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, so thanks, Michelle, for inviting me for this excellent interview. So I've been working on hydrogen fuel cells for nearly over 25 years. I have worked on various places. So my actual, the very first project I've started in Pakistan back in 2001. That was the very first time I jumped into the hydrogen field. And at that time, between 2001 to 2004, this was first of its kind in Pakistan. I set up the hydrogen energy laboratory, and the project was basically to do R&D on the metal hydride hydrogen refrigeration systems. Stepping out from there, completing that project, I moved to Germany and I did my master's in renewable energy, and I worked on very leading institutes during my master's. I was working at Forschungszentrum Jülich, one of the leading institutes for fuel cell research in Germany. And also I did my master's thesis in German Aerospace Center in Germany as well. Then I came back to UK, did my PhD in chemical engineering from University of Birmingham, again, the leading university for fuel cell research in England. And after that, I moved to Netherlands, again, working on fuel cells, came back to England, working for a company for 6 years in London on fuel cells as well. And then after that, I have been working on several, projects all over the world. Like a majority of the projects were mainly in Europe. So one of the key projects I've led is first of its kind in Hungary, where we were setting up the fuel cell buses, electric buses, and hydrogen powered drones. And the other project I've led is a 400 megawatt green hydrogen project for Pakistan. Again, first of its kind in Pakistan. And some other, projects. The very important thing I should mention here, I'm the world's first in setting up the International Hydrogen Aviation Conference platform. So this is called IHAC, and this was set up back in 2020 in Glasgow. And since then, I'm running annual series of the events of IHAC. And this year we will be running the 7th annual series of IHAC. So this is one of the what's called leading kind of platform where people come together, discuss decarbonization, in particular for hydrogen use in aviation. So that's me here.
Yeah, so how did you get started? What was your first job in the energy sector?
Yeah, so the very first one. So when I completed my graduation back in Pakistan from the NED University, I stepped into a project basically, within the same university. So this was a research project to do a hydrogen research, and my professor basically he was doctorate from Germany, and he brought that idea back from Germany during his doctorate that we should be doing something on hydrogen. And I was lucky, to be honest, at that time to step into that project. The other thing is basically at that time I was lucky to be mentored by leading professor who is now passed away, and he was the founder and founder of International Hydrogen Aviation Association. So International Hydrogen Aviation Association, sorry, International Hydrogen Association. And what he did basically, he mentored me throughout my journey, initial journey, and he suggested that I should be stepping into renewable and hydrogen, and that's brought me into that field.
Okay, what made you go into decarbonation and hydrogen? Because it is important, I know this.
Yeah, so the way, what we look at basically, there are different kind of options to decarbonize. So there are two choices are basically either you use electrification, which means battery, or you go for hydrogen. These are the two key kind of strategies and the options available currently in the market. So what we see now, initial momentum, when I look back 20 years, there was a huge momentum in hydrogen, and there was initial kind of Toyota back in I remember 2011. Toyota set up their first fuel cell car, which is Toyota Mirai, and very early days as well. They brought commercialization of these cars. Hyundai was very similar timing. So what I saw that over time, the momentum in the passenger cars has been slowed down for hydrogen, and batteries are trying to compete. And the reason is very simple, that if you are looking for smaller things like passenger cars, for example, bicycles, motorcycles, so the load demand is not too much, so you don't need to have a very heavy loads to carry, and hydrogen doesn't suit, to be honest, in these very light kind of vehicles. So what we now differentiate is anywhere where you are looking at very lightweight and very little range, like less than 250 kilometers, electric could be better option, and anything with a heavy load, payloads, very high demand, much more utilization, then the hydrogen makes perfect sense for decarbonization. So that's the way we are now looking, and that's I step up towards the hydrogen because I saw the hard to abate sectors like aviation, for example, maritime, and heavy duty trucks, buses. They are all going to be hydrogen, not electric.
Okay, so is there many jobs going for the young graduates to have a successful career in the hydrogen and decarbonisation?
Yeah, for sure. So what we see, there are a lot of the way jobs come out in the market is basically many of these universities, for example, they are offering some kind of courses. So I myself have done, as I mentioned, PhD at that time from Birmingham University. Now the same university is offering master's courses specially dedicated to hydrogen. There is a university in Belfast as well. They are, University of Belfast, they are offering some hydrogen safety course, even diploma courses as well. So industry basically before offering a job, they want some sort of, pre-experience, and that's needed basically. Without having any experience, the jobs are not easy in any sector. So many of these universities are now ramping up these kind of graduation courses. And the other option, what I've seen is that there are a lot of industries now stepped up to give the internships and master's thesis. Even in my case, back 20 years back, I did a master's thesis in the German Aerospace Center in Germany. So I can see now, because of this kind of trend, the universities are picking up, and there is a strong need for decarbonization, and governments are also supporting in terms of subsidies, fundings, grants. In UK, we have Innovate UK. They are giving a lot of subsidies and research grants to universities as well. So definitely that's the way, and the young graduates are stepping into that kind of territory, because that would be the future. Maybe we won't see these kind of things running in our lifetime as a commercial, like every home may have a hydrogen car, very less likely, but our generations, next generation would definitely see that.
Okay, so do you think having a PhD has helped you in your career?
Oh yeah, 100%. So I have been, after doing my PhD in specifically, I did my PhD in solid oxide fuel cells, and that was my master's thesis as well. And I was lucky, my PhD was sponsored by E.ON, one of the leading energy companies in UK. So E.ON has fully funded my PhD. And after doing that, I was lucky. I got a project in Netherlands and followed that, a very big career, stepping into a proper industry for fuel cell development, single cell stacks and system development at AFC Energy in UK. And since then, I have now stepped my own career basically, which means I'm an independent consultant and working for projects all over the world. So for sure, if I would not have the PhD, I would lose that kind of edge into becoming a independent consultant, because then I would be more towards the industrial kind of employee.
Okay. So do you recommend a lot of the new up and coming generation, young professionals, to undertake their PhD?
Yeah, so I think it's a matter of, a decision on individual. What I've seen, for example, and I've spoken to many young graduates. So there are options. For example, it depends on your circumstances, family kind of, situation as well. So there are some students I've spoken to. They said, like, we can't afford to do PhD because in PhD you are locked for 3 years with a very low kind of stipend or a fellowship. So that could, that's a personal decision. So if the personal circumstances allow you to do a PhD, then I would strongly recommend that. But if you have the option, based on your personal circumstances, to step into industry straight after your master's, I would also, I'm more than happy to do that. But I would recommend at least minimum a master's or a PhD, depending on your situation, because just alone a graduation from a uni as a bachelor's, for example, I don't think it's enough in the market right now.
Okay, because you do actually see a lot of more jobs, especially for senior jobs, senior leadership jobs. They do want a master's degree. So
For,
do you think that
for,
it is
for,
very important?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's exactly, even when we were hiring, I worked for different companies, as I mentioned, and when we were hiring, we were looking different kind of scenarios. So one of the key things what we look, any graduates coming from the top universities, they get a top ranking for the hiring. For example, in UK, any graduate coming from Cambridge, Oxford, Imperial, they are right at the top. The second criteria, then we see either he has a PhD. PhD is definitely a top criteria as well, if not a minimum of master. So I think by looking all these kind of, which university, which background, does he have any kind of relevant decarbonization background, either in battery or a fuel cell or a hydrogen. And then we look for example, the third criteria would be master or a PhD, and then we make a decision.
Do you think it is important what university you went to?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as I mentioned, going to a university, especially for these kind of courses, really helped a lot. And I'm guiding my son as well, and he would be doing the same path.
Okay. So, what is the best thing about your job?
To be honest, the best thing I like is independence, because when I'm working as an independent consultant, I have the full flexibility to maneuver over my skills basically. So I can, instead of locked to a single project, I have the opportunity to step into multiple projects, which gives me a very, very wide experience. In parallel, I can run, for example, a project in Hungary is on hydrogen powered buses and electric buses. The other project is hydrogen powered drone. The third one, as I mentioned, I'm running the annual conference, which I'm fully stepped into a hydrogen use in aviation. So by doing this kind of, independent kind of consulting role, one would have the opportunity to strengthen his skills, which would not be possible if you are working for one, particular industry, because then you are only looking for one project. So I think definitely I'm enjoying my time by doing that.
Okay, what made you decide to start up the conference?
Yeah, very good question. I published an interview. I believe it was last week, and it was published on very high level of hydrogen research kind of magazines, and also it is published on MSN. So very good question. The question was asked, what made me to step into the aviation business. So it was, I remember, just before COVID, 2019. It was 2019. I was offered a position from Airbus in Germany, and they were looking to hire me for a fuel cell position and to work in Germany. And due to some personal reasons, I was unable to join that job. So I stepped back and then said, look, hang on, Airbus is looking something. And very early time, at that time, I hardly see anyone was talking to use hydrogen in aviation on a large scale. And a player like Airbus jumping into hydrogen use in aviation was a big thing for me. So when I realized, the Airbus is definitely looking to develop hydrogen powered aircraft in the coming years, I thought this is definitely could be a big, maybe, future coming on. So since I could not join Airbus, but I decided, coming back from that, I took that kind of initiative. I should still do something for the aviation. And that's why hydrogen, the idea came in my mind. Why not I set up a world's first forum where I gather all the people all around the world to join that forum and discuss the latest invention of hydrogen use in aviation. And in fact, I invited one of the key kind of leader from the Airbus, and he presented his work on hydrogen use in aviation in my conference as well. I remember back in 21 or 2022.
When is your conference going to be? When is it going to? What is the date of it?
Yeah, so we run every year the first week of September. So that's our schedule. Every week of the first week of September on Thursday, we do that. And this year we have the 3rd of September, 2026, and this would be the 7th annual series. So as you can see, since last 6 years, we have run this every year. There were a couple of sessions we did on site. So one of them was on site in Glasgow. The other one we did back in 2023 in Edinburgh. And after that, we are looking to do sessions online. The reason is very simple, because when you are doing these sessions, these conferences on site, you need funding basically. And funding could only come either someone is sponsoring you or there is a government subsidy. But I tried, everywhere. And to be honest, it's very hard to get subsidies. So what I'm doing is I made a decision to, instead of running, these sessions on site, because it needs a lot of investment, I'm doing, online sessions after that.
Okay, so how can people find out about your conference then?
Yeah, so there are different kind of marketing tools we have done. So there is a Scottish channel from Scottish Enterprise. It is called Shine, and they have, I think Shine stands for Scottish Innovation Hydrogen forum or something like that. So Shine is one of them, and they are advertising our event. The other is a very big one, the Clean Hydrogen Partnership in European Union, and they do basically a lot of events, announcements, and our event is also, it's like a sponsorship. They are supporting our event, and this is listed there. The very relevant one is our own company, which is called High Hybrid Energy, and this is listed in our company as well. So if anyone just Google it, International Hydrogen Aviation Conference, you will find it right on the top.
Okay, what kind of topics will you be discussing during the conference?
Yeah, very good one. So what we do basically, since it is the conference which leads all the innovations in hydrogen, so anything which links hydrogen use in aviation is welcome to present in that conference. And I can give you a couple of themes which are announced on our agenda. So what we are looking is hydrogen powered drones, for example. This is one of the themes. Then we have the hydrogen powered aircraft, any of the hydrogen used within the airport facilities. Either someone is running hydrogen buses at the airport facility, or a baggage loader, or anything very similar, like you could have maybe a refueling system as well. And the other things what we have seen in the early years of conferences, there were hydrogen powered airships. So this is also still on agenda. We also have another broad topic which is not directly linked to hydrogen, but it is hydrogen is an ingredient for that. So it's called sustainable aviation fuel. So electro sustainable aviation fuel, in short, it is called ESAF. And within ESAF, you need hydrogen and carbon dioxide to make these kind of fuels. So hydrogen is still a key player. So anything where you use hydrogen within the aircraft or aviation environment is welcome in that conference.
Okay, so can you tell me what one of your main highlights of your career has been so far?
Yeah, so I have been, to be honest, if you look back my resume, you will find there are a couple of first titles I own, and I can mention a couple of them. So the very first project I did in Pakistan back in 2001. This was the Pakistan first metal hydride hydrogen energy laboratory ever established in the country for a R&D. So this goes back to 2001, and at that time when I talked to my friends that I've been working on hydrogen at that time, and I set up this laboratory for the first time in my country, then people really, get surprised saying, oh, we were never thinking that Pakistan could be well ahead 20 or 25 years ago. But I said, no, man, the things are definitely happening. And we did something very, very early days. So that's one of the proudest moment for me. The other project I have done is the Hungarian project. So within the Hungary, the first of its kind, electric and hydrogen buses kind of demo and designs development project. And also we were doing the hydrogen powered drone in Hungary as well. This is also first of its kind in Hungary. So that's the second one. The third one, I did my PhD with a professor in Birmingham, and very, very important topic to mention here. So the professor I was doing my PhD is Professor Kevin Kendall, and he is the innovator of microtubular solid oxide fuel cells. So I have the privilege or the pleasure to work with the inventor of this particular type of fuel cells, which is again first of its kind. And during my PhD, I published papers on this particular type, which is single chamber microtubular solid oxide fuel cells, and they were first of its kind study in the world on this particular type of single chamber microtubular solid oxide fuel cells with this professor together. So you can see a couple of projects, and the last project I did, I think it was 3-4 years ago, and I was setting up the Pakistan first 400 megawatt green hydrogen project basically. So it's the first of its kind in Pakistan, a very large scale. And last but not least, as I said, the world first international hydrogen aviation conference platform, which is IHAC, was established in 2020. So you can see there are 4 or 5 different first of its kind project which I'm leading, and that make me really proud.
That sounds amazing. So, what advice would you have for any new young professionals or newly graduates to break into the hydrogen energy sector?
Yeah, okay. So I think there are a couple of students they've been asking the same questions when they graduate, and they ask, okay, should we step into hydrogen or do we go in an oil and gas business? Because sometimes, the political shift, changes all these kind of circumstances. So my advice right now, I can give you a very clear practical example. We all see the situation in Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, and we have seen how it has changed the whole energy dynamics. Especially, I'm hearing, the Europe at least is have maybe next 30 days of supply for the jet fuels, and they are canceling a lot of flights. The reason is the fuel or the energy which is coming from Europe is very, very getting very expensive. Even we are seeing on our daily lives by fueling our cars as well. So if that continues, which is already has done a lot of damage to the European economy as well. I believe it is over 20 billion has been accelerated in terms of the spending. So if that continues, we can see Europe would definitely look something as a energy security and as a energy resilience. So instead of depending on third world countries or outside countries, especially Middle East, to bring the energy from that, or oil or gas from those countries, Europe is stepping up, and they are picking up to have their own kind of energy security and energy supply system. And now, if you look at that, there are only 2 options: to decarbonize and also utilize these kind of energy. So one of them is battery, or the other is a hydrogen. So what I see for sure for the fresh graduates, the coming years, if this kind of scenario, we have seen these scenarios twice. So previously we saw that in at least in my age, during COVID time, aviation was the bad hit sector, and then this is the second time again. Aviation is the biggest hardest sector to be hit on that. So what my advice would be, that definitely look something in renewable energy, at least minimum in electric. Either it's a battery electric systems or hydrogen power systems, because that would be the future for the next generation.
Okay, so for a young graduate, do you think that they're still going to be able to have a successful career in the energy sector? Because it is a bit unstable just now.
Yeah, so I think what we see the instability is mainly coming from different circumstances. It's mainly geopolitical, to be honest. What I've seen, especially the U.S. kind of influence into change the renewable energy kind of momentum back to fossil due to certain advantages for their own country. So, but it's not gonna last, and it's not gonna help Europe. Europe has a completely different kind of strategy, and I can mention a couple of the mandates kicked in. So this was 2025. So January 2025, Europe has decided a clear regulation in place in the European Union, and likewise UK has its own mandate. And the mandate is any flight starting January 2025, going out from either UK or European Union airports must carry 2% SAF, or which is a green fuel. So which means they cannot put 100% jet fuel in that, which is a fossil one, but at least 2% of that fuel should be starting from January 2025 should be a green fuel, which is a sustainable aviation fuel. So what I see, this kind of regulations by these countries, at least the European Union and UK, is forcing quite a lot. And if that continues, and they have set up a full agenda, so it's not only 2025, the numbers are ramping up. So starting this 2025 is 2%. In 2030, Europe is talking, I remember, is 6%, and UK is talking 10% of these green fuels into the jet. So, and that they are accelerating, and they are reaching to a net zero by 2050. And if that continues, I don't think this kind of any kind of geopolitical scenarios would help that, because the mandates would clearly dictate that things have to be done towards decarbonization.
Okay, so what kind of companies are working on the dehydrocarbonization?
Yeah, so there are very big names, like for example, I can, they're from energy supply point of view, BP, Shell, for example, they are investing quite a lot, and they have been working on these kind of, systems. Mainly they are involved in, setting up the whole supply chain. So buying a fuel, for example, from places where it is produced, taking it, and then trying to basically utilize for different applications. One of the application is setting up hydrogen refilling stations. So there are a couple of them in UK, and there are many in Germany, and for example in China is leading the market right now. The world's largest hydrogen refilling station right now are in China, followed by South Korea and also in Japan as well. So many countries, they are investing quite a lot, and big companies like the energy companies as well. For example, in Germany there's RWE, Eon. In the early days they also stepped up into that business as well, and Total Energy from France. All these big energy giants, they are clearly looking, and the reason is because they have been told by the governments and also by the commissions, European commissions or the UK regulators, that they cannot continue to sell fossil fuels, which means they have a binding targets, and these targets have to be met, and that would force the decarbonization of these fuels. So these are just used for mobility applications, for maritime, for the aviation. But not only these, now these guys are looking to use hydrogen into households, for example. So in Fife in Scotland there is a project happening, and these guys are looking to power, I remember, 100 of the homes, just normal homes, to be powered by hydrogen, which means we would be able to cook our food by just using hydrogen. And this project is first of its kind in the world, where they are using hydrogen power directly for the household applications, and especially in Scotland.
Okay, so if a graduate has minimum experience, how would they go about approaching the big leading companies to ask if they have any opportunities?
Yeah, again, very good question. So the way I would suggest, what they should be doing, once they are in their at least minimum third year of their graduation, then they should start approaching big companies. Many times I've seen they are not advertising these kind of vacancies, so it's very hard to find. So what the best option would be either approaching their HR or approaching via LinkedIn. I've suggested a lot of recent graduates, and they are very successful. The options are either go to HR of their website, sending open applications, or connect with their maybe leading kind of key managers who are working in hydrogen in these big industries. For Scotland, I've advised to young graduates to look for INEOS. So INEOS is also stepping up and then trying to decarbonize and setting up green hydrogen kind of business. There, BP, Shell, all these kind of things. So two options: either directly approach via the company email to the HR, or go to relevant people who are working this business, in particular these companies, to their LinkedIn channels.
Okay. So you would have to really make sure that your CV and your speculative letters are going to be up to scratch. What type of experience would they need to highlight to enter into the dehydrocarbonized
Yeah.
space?
Yeah. So the best thing is, they should have, during their graduation, they should have some sort of studies which are linking to this decarbonization subjects. For example, there are graduates who may have done, a renewable energy course, for example. There are graduates who may have studied a hydrogen and fuel cell course, especially I think many universities on the English side, on England, I've seen they are offering these courses, like Birmingham is one of them. The other option is, if they have not done anything either on a decarbonization or a hydrogen fuel cell course, a minimum would be that they should have some sort of energy experience, at least, coming from battery business, or maybe a general touch of, they should have understood how a electrochemistry works basically. So if they have any relevant experience, they should highlight during their studies. And the second very big thing I would suggest, maybe during their graduation, when they are working towards first year or second year, they maybe try to look for a internship. So if they have got maybe 1 or 2 months either internally with their university, or maybe any other university within the country or outside, anywhere in Europe, they should step out and then go for there and then gain that kind of experience. Because if someone has done a minimum of 2 months of internship, or maybe a graduation thesis into a relevant type, this would be a big plus for the graduates to enter into that particular industry.
Do you think having a summer internship is quite important?
Absolutely, 100%. And that's exactly I'm telling to my son. So my son is currently doing his chemical engineering. I'm also a PhD in chemical engineering, and I'm guiding him, mentoring him exactly the same pathway. So he's doing his bachelor's in chemical engineering from Strathclyde, and he's currently in second year. So I'm pushing him very, very hard. He should not be waiting for final year. So I'm asking, he should be looking second year now. He's completing his second year, sending his CVs everywhere, basically for all these decarbonization kind of positions, at least minimum for a master's thesis. If nothing works for master's, minimum for a internship. And if what I've seen in practice, I think if you are a graduate and studying in first or second year, it will be very, very hard. So that's why I've advised him, don't spend too much time right now, because you need to have certain type of theoretical understanding before you enter into the industry for a project. So my advice to any fresh graduate is basically, who are still studying in the universities, they should be stepping up and then start basically sending their profile to the industry minimum in third year, and max, definitely in final year as well.
What is one of the most important advice that you've given to your son that you can share with our younger audience?
Very good one. Yes. So what I have told him, and I keep telling him many times, because there are some kind of learning exercise throughout my journey. As I said, I have a 25 years of decarbonization journey, and I've seen a lot of ups and downs in my career, and I don't want that the mistakes I have done should be done by anyone else, or at least by minimum by my son. So I have given him an advice, and I will give this advice to any young graduate. The advice is that if you have the chance, and if you have the opportunity, do not go to a startup for a internship or for a thesis. Instead, try to reach out to big industries like BP, like Shell, Ineos, any big multinational companies. Because the thing is, to be honest, I was not lucky to approach to these big sectors. And what I have seen, if you are not entering into these big sectors right at the start, then your future career would be basically dictated by these kind of initial skills you have gained. So I was not lucky. I could not get into very big companies in the early time, and I jumped into startups to do all these kind of initial kind of career built up. And throughout the life, then the opportunity chances reduces if you want to go to large big companies. So my advice is, if you have the opportunities, park the startups on the backside, go to big companies, and then try to approach them. If you're lucky, go for it. If not, maybe the second option is to, if then there's nothing to do, then you have no other option other than going to small companies.
Okay. Do you think that you can learn more in a big company than in a smaller company?
100%. So, there are two big advantages, and this is exactly what we have seen during the hiring process as well. So when we are hiring people, as I mentioned, we are looking couple of skill sets coming on. So first thing, the university, which university the student is coming from. If it is coming from the top universities, that go right at the top for the hiring process. The very second thing, what we look into that, which industry he has worked for. If he has, a career step up, a internship or a thesis, or maybe early work, coming from very big giants of energy like BP, Shell, Ineos, and any Total Energy, RWE, E.ON, anything like that, then they go right at the top. So definitely, the education, university plus the industry experience from big giants is the big kind of thing for hiring.
Okay. I'm going to ask you maybe one final question. If you could change anything about your amazing career that you've already had and is already ongoing, what would you change?
Yeah, good question. So if I would change anything at this stage, I would be again, maybe I'm too late in my life, since I have done quite a lot in this journey, especially in particular for hydrogen and fuel cell. I should have maybe 10 years ago, or maybe at least 15 years ago, I should have stepped up and then set up a startup in terms of R&D kind of technology, which means I have a huge experience coming from hydrogen and fuel cells. So I should maybe have collaborated with any university locally and setting up a startup R&D, like a spin out. Many of these universities and startups, they are jointly collaborating, and because I could easily utilize my experience and set up a novel technology based on all my previous experience, which unfortunately I've not done that. So I think, yeah, it's too late, but if I would have the chance, I would have done it.
And that's an excellent advice for a younger
Yeah.
audience. So I'm going to end things there. That's all the questions I have today. I would like to thank Naveed for your time. That brings us to the end of another episode. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.
Yeah, super. Thanks a lot, Michelle, for your time, and then have a good time, a good weekend ahead. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of another episode. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, I'd like to gently encourage you to leave a 5-star rating wherever you listen to podcasts, and share the show with another person. You can also follow me on LinkedIn or via my website, www.michellefraserconsultancy.com. Thanks again for listening, and see you next week.